Commissioner Manfred wants to have pitchers go deeper into games. While I am not for his method, I think he might be onto something.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for quite a while now, and this is my sixth full season here as a host on the Locked On Podcast Network. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And by the way, if you're following us every single day, be sure to put in that hashtag everyday Sully if you're posting anything on the interwebs. And also, if you want to listen to me more than once a day, check out Locked On A's, which I've been doing all season long. And today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match of $100. So we have about 40 games left in the season, about a month and a half. And about a month and a half left of me doing double duty here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm going to be, as I said, I'm doing Locked On A's all regular season long. But once the season's over for the A's, well, that's going to be it for your pal Sully. I'm going to be moving on to just doing one podcast a day, which for some people is a lot. But for me, evidently, it would be cutting back on my duties. I'm recording this. Games have already begun. Once again, I've said this before. I've said it again. Here's a sentence that's never been said. Hey, the game's on Apple TV. Good. No one's ever said that. No one has ever said that sentence, and no one has ever had that particular sentiment. One game is already in the can. The Cubs had a walk-off victory against the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are now falling. They are tumbling. They're 8 games under 500. Okay. There's stuff to go over because there has been some news and there have been some things that are worth talking about. First and foremost, the Commissioner Rob Manfred posted a possibility of a rule change, and the rule change would involve pitchers having to throw at least 6 innings before they can be relieved. Now, there are some, and this is just something that had been floated on, that had been floated in articles. And, but, I've always found that when there are things that the commissioner is floating out there, there tends to be a little bit of teeth to it. I remember not too long ago that it was floated that Major League Baseball was considering putting a runner at second base, automatic runner at second base in extra innings. Now, at first, that sounded absurd, but now it's what we have right now. Well, the rule was saying that the pitcher has to throw 6 innings, or if there's an injury or some extenuating circumstances, I think a certain level of a blowout before a pitcher could be lifted. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to work. And it's one of these things that on first glance, like, okay, that'll keep pitchers in the game longer. Yeah, but it could add to some shenanigans and also add to some things that would slow down the game. when they institute the rule, pitcher has to throw to at least a relief pitcher has to face at least 3 batters. That was intended to cut down on the number of trips to the mound and times you stop the game. But what it also did is it created some shenanigans, like a manager relieving a pitcher with 2 outs and nobody on so they can get the prerequisite 3 batters for 1. It didn't quite work. But I do think there is a bit of a need to have some of our starting pitchers go longer. Now, right now, we are in a time, and I'm going to cover a little more in detail some of my thoughts, because I do think the lack of innings-eating starting pitchers is intentional. I do think it's economic. I don't think it has to do with sabermetrics. I don't think it has to do with advanced stats. I think it has to do with we don't want to pay ace pitchers, so let's create pitching staffs that don't need ace pitchers. And let me just say that this is basically this. We're going to go into great detail, but I'm going to basically equate movie stars with ace pitchers. Not a lot of new movie stars, because studios realized that movie stars require a lot of money and a lot of attention, and the same thing for ace pitchers. So now we have people playing Spider-Man instead of movie stars, and now we have people who go 5-6 innings tops and then a parade of relievers. That's why the trade deadline, which used to be which star is going to be traded at the deadline, is basically just let's go bargain hunting for relief pitchers. Now, I do think baseball needs to do something about having pitchers last longer, however. It was one of the great elements of fairness in baseball is the pitching rotation. You could have a bad team play a good team, but a bad team could be favored over the good team if the pitching matchup favored them. Now, when Felix Hernandez won his lone Cy Young Award, he did so with a 13-12 record. And there were some, old stooges who go like, I don't know if a Cy Young Award winner should be 13-12. Well, fine, whatever. Every other category, he led the league. He just played on a terrible Mariners team. And I think the fact that he won 13 games and had a winning record should have been looked at as a positive, because that Mariners team stunk. But it's a thing you look at when you check out the game. Who's pitching? Who's pitching today? Because that is something that levels the proverbial playing field. Say that 3 times fast. It levels it. Go like, oh, we're going to kick their butt today. Oh, wait, they're throwing their best pitcher. In the early 2010s, when the Mariners stunk, you salivated when you saw the Mariners were coming to town. But, ooh, wow, they're starting Felix Hernandez. In 2004, the Arizona Diamondbacks were absolutely dreadful. But the days that Randy Johnson pitched, look out. He's still at his Cy Young stuff. But when the starting pitchers don't last past the 5th, and it just turns into a parade of relief pitchers, each throwing about 12 pitches, well, then that goes out the window. And the excitement over the matchup is, well, quite frankly, irrelevant. It's kind of like saying who's going to be the starting pitcher in the All-Star game. Who cares? They're only facing 3 batters. Who's the starting pitcher? Doesn't matter. Get past the 5th. You'll be fine. Who is the last pitcher that's been developed that you hand the ball to and they're going to go 7, 8, 9 innings guaranteed? Few and far between. And when one shows up, like Sandy Alcantara or Paul Skeens, we're just counting down the minutes before their arm explodes faster than you can say Jacob deGrom. But I do think they need to do something, and I am not going to go against Rob Manfred. That's the knee-jerk reaction for a lot of people, to go against anything Rob Manfred said that's a little bit different. Yes, he's had some clunkerinos, none worse than the runner on second. But some of the ideas have actually worked out pretty well. When we come back, I want to give Rob Manfred credit where credit is due and reiterate my ideas of how to make pitchers stay in a little bit longer. Oh my God, was it hot today? It was about 400 degrees today in Pasadena. And if I didn't have my liquid IV near me, I would have been dehydrated because of that kind of hot. So don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's popsicle firecracker flavor. It's a surefire summer hit. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. Because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. Blast off with the iconic summer flavor of popsicle firecracker, a festive blend of citrus-fueled lemon, lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. You can find all the flavors on your website: lemon, lime, pina colada, and more. Tear, pour, live more. One stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. Powered by LIV Hydra Science, which is trademarked, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop for better hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Locked On has created the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming service. Locked On Sports Today is available on YouTube or on Amazon TV on the free Fire TV channel app. Check it out for all the latest news, takes, and opinions of the Locked On hosts, whether it's the local or the national ones. Check out Locked On Sports Today, available wherever you get podcasts, on Amazon Fire TV channel app, and on YouTube. All right, I've been quick to criticize Rob Manfred in the past, and with good reason. He's done dumb things. The runner on second is really stupid. However, some of the things he's come up with have been worked out okay. I think the expansion of the wild card round has worked out fine. Still needs some tweaking. It absolutely needs some tweaking. There should be no travel days. Season ends on Sunday. Wild card series starts on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Division series starts on Thursday. No more having a week off. But expanding the playoffs have turned this season into an exciting situation. I also think that the pitch clock has been great. I love the pitch clock. And I have no problem with the bigger bases. None. Do you know why? I love stolen bases. I love anarchy in stolen bases. And so those work. So even though I'm quick to trash Rob Manfred, he's on the right track here. We need to do something to keep that element of baseball that is unique, the starting pitching rotation. Now, I have made 2 humble suggestions in previous episodes. And those of you who are everyday Sully listeners, like my good buddy Jeff Cohen, who's an everyday Sully, thanks, buddy. I made 2 suggestions, and I stand by them. The biggest one, and I think they should do this instead of you can't take a pitcher out before the 6th inning. I say at the beginning of the game, when you exchange the lineups, on the lineup are the 4 pitchers you can use in the first 9 innings. Each team can use 4 pitchers, 4 over 9 innings. If a pitcher gets thrashed in the first 2, someone's got to go deep in the game. If the starting pitcher is going really, really well, then maybe they'll throw a complete game. Or maybe you could save all 3 pitchers for the 9th. I don't know, and neither do you. But I think that part of the reason that some of these games start to all look the same is the pitcher's only going to last 5, and then it's a parade. This guy throws 1, this guy throws 1, this guy throws 1, this guy throws 1. And that's kind of dull. And it's also showing that the teams are developing pitchers to not go more than 5 innings. The reason why we have this situation is that that's what teams want. They're training the pitchers to not go more than 6 innings under any circumstances. Some of you may see the thumbnail for this episode, which was the moment that Blake Snell got removed from Game 6 of the 2020 World Series in one of the absolute stupidest moves in the history of baseball. There is no defending it. It was the definition of dumb. He was throwing a masterpiece. At least have him throw 7 innings. They didn't let him finish 6. And everybody on the planet Earth knew that the gassed Rays bullpen was going to give up the lead. That's exactly what they did. But it's the mentality of, you know what? Even if the World Series is on the line, we can't let the pitchers go deep. And we're not going to train them to go deep. All right. But then have other people willing to go deep. If you're only going to go 5 or 6 innings, have someone go 2 innings. You got it. You can't keep dragging pitchers out all the time. I also had the mentality of maybe flip the switch or the script or something, like how Madison Bumgarner came out and pitched the final 5 innings of the 2014 World Series, or the way that Pedro Martinez came out and threw the final 6 innings of the division series in 1999 between the Red Sox and the Cleveland Indians. That's what they were called then. Basically have the star pitcher be the headliner. The other relief pitchers get you through the first 4 innings, and then your star pitcher pitches the final 5. You better get those runs early because in comes the headliner, and then you're smoked. I think we need to do something to incentivize having pitchers throw more and having it not just be a parade of relievers. Because once you do that, any advantage just goes out the window, or it just turns into a war of attrition. Now, we'll get into a little bit more in a later date, later on this week, about why I think economically they're making these decisions and why it's basically shooting themselves in the foot. But I like the fact that Rob Manfred is trying to address something. Don't take away one of the things that makes baseball great. The starting rotation, who's pitching today? That question is irrelevant these days if the pitcher can't go 5, or if they are not expected to go more than 5. So let's work this out. And that also will, get pitchers to go deeper, or as I found out earlier this year, or as I said earlier this year, maybe develop some more knuckleballers. And maybe you can get some more stars. Along those lines, when we come back, I would talk about someone who shone on the biggest stage as an all-star and now is looking for a job. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, and it's being used by more than 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more than or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections. Watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. You could turn $10 into $1,000 because you could win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as few as 4 correct picks. And Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including Texas, Georgia, right here in California. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less on Prize Picks. It's that easy. Thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen. For your second listen, hear more of your pal Sully as I'm hosting Locked On A's in this weird final year in Oakland. Hear my takes on the team. And you don't have to be an A's fan to enjoy the show. This week, I did a show where I traveled all around the Bay Area and looked for the places where the A's proposed to build new stadiums that never came through. Check out Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Space Magic Storm says, I wonder if this new rule where pitchers go 6+ innings will run 6 starting pitch rotations or give them additional days off for each cycle. I don't know. I don't know enough about the rule, but I don't mind thinking outside the box. Meanwhile, last year, one of the bad things that Manfred and company have done is they have instituted the National League, American League uniforms in the All-Star game. It's terrible. It's an absolute disgrace. And to me, it's kind of ruined the All-Star game. My favorite part of the All-Star game is when they all lined up along the first and third base lines, all in their own uniform, and they tip their hat. That's gone. They're all wearing the same uniform, and half the time I can't tell who is who because they're wearing the same uniform. And I can't always recognize which tall, lanky dude is which. Well, last year, Elias Diaz was the All-Star Game MVP when he hit the game-winning home run. And he was the Rockies' lone All-Star. Of course, he wasn't wearing a Rockies uniform because why would you do that? Well, today it was announced that he was released by the Rockies. And I did a little bit of a double take. Wait a minute, what? Now, Diaz was not having a bad year, not by any stretch of the imagination. You know, he wasn't having a great year, but batting .270. His OPS was .693. He wasn't having, last year was much better, but, you know, his power numbers are way down, but it's not like he was suddenly a chain on the team. But essentially, the Rockies are not going to pick up his contract. Now, why didn't they trade him last year if they were just going to dump him? I don't know, and neither do you. But I guess this is an act of mercy. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. And instead of him playing out the string in Colorado, which is probably going to wind up being, if not the worst team in the National League, then the second worst, they're allowing him to, you know, latch on with a contender. Say, all right, go out there, find a contending team that could use a catcher down the stretch. You know, the Cubs probably could at this point. I'm sure there's some other team. I don't have a team right now, but, well, you know, I hope he does. I hope he gets to play in the postseason because that would be kind of, in a weird way, an act of mercy for the Colorado Rockies. But either way, good luck. And it just shows you how fleeting glory is in this sport. 1 year, All-Star Game MVP. Next, you're looking for a job. It is Players Weekend, so there's lots of weird kind of fun, funky uniforms and charity stuff and everything going on. I think that's great. It shows some of the characters, shows some of the personalities. I don't mind some of the additional uniforms, everything that for Players Weekend. It could be a lot of fun. And we're starting to see there's some interesting matchups. As I mentioned, the Cubs have already beaten Toronto around the league. The Mariners are beating the Pirates. The Pirates just can't win. Then you have big games going on between the Yankees and the Tigers. Boston trying to stay alive. Orioles trying to keep first place to themselves. The Mets want to stay at all relevant as they play the Marlins. The Royals and the Reds are taking on the Astros and the White Sox. A rematch of the 2005 World Series. This is exactly what the Astros need to sort of beef up their win total. But the most interesting games, if the Braves win because the A's are idle, that would mean that the Angels and A's would be tied as the A's are trying to climb out of the cellar. Meanwhile, the Cardinals and the Dodgers are playing. If the Cardinals win that game and the Padres and knuckleballer Waldron beat the Rocks and the Diamondbacks hold on to their 2-0 lead against the Rays, that would mean the Diamondbacks and the Padres would be each one game behind the Dodgers. So a lot of fun is happening here, and hopefully we're going to see some good pitching matchups as well. So follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And you can find me. I'm your pal Sully at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And let's give you the trivia question. Who is the only player in the history of the World Series to end the World Series with a walk-off hit that was a pinch hit? The only person to end the World Series with a pinch hit, run-scoring hit. That is your trivia question. So put it right down here on the YouTube and everything like that. Talking about pitchers, Elias Diaz and the Players Weekend. This has been Locked On MLB. Have a great weekend, everyone. I'm Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.